Hey everyone, welcome to episode 0 of Hard Wig, Soft Life. I'm Melissa L. Atkinson, your host, and first and foremost, I want to thank you all for being here today, whatever your reason is for pressing play. You could have been anywhere in the world today, but you're here with me. Obviously, I am quoting the great Jay-Z. Jay-Z is my favorite rapper. So I was listening to that on the way here, and when he said that, I was like, yo, that is the realest sentiment ever, and that is truly and honestly how I feel. This project is a big deal to me. This project is super important because this is my life story. This is my heart on the mic, and this is a very vulnerable thing for me to share. And when I tell you that vulnerability is something that I have worked on and worked on and worked on, from not being able to be vulnerable to doing all right at it, it's been a work in progress. So I do want to thank you guys for coming on this journey with me. If there's something that I have learned, I will say that I have learned that there are some stories that just aren't told enough. We live in the age of social media, and people love to share highlights of their life, and everything is great and everything is fantastic, and that's wonderful, it really is, but that's not real life. I feel like what we lack sometimes are the real stories of struggle, are the stories of sheer perseverance, are the stories of survival. And so Hard Wig, Soft Life, my podcast, is just that. First season especially is going to be touching on those three things. And I feel like I have lived a life of perseverance and struggle and survival. And thankfully, I have made it on the other side. Not without a fight, of course, it wasn't easy, but I've definitely made it on the other side. So this first episode is just for me to introduce myself to you, to explain what Hard Wig Soft Life is, how it correlates to my life, who I am, who I've been, and how we got here. So I felt like I really had to dig deep on the who I am part of this whole thing. I'm not gonna lie to you, I feel like this is probably gonna be the hardest episode for me, and it is just because I have to give you everything in a brief synopsis, and everything is a lot. Like, I've gone through a lot. Like, it's not lost on me. I have gone through so much. So please bear with me. I'm trying to keep myself organized. I'm trying to keep myself on track. This is also my first time recording a full podcast by myself. I've done a podcast before many moons ago, more than like 10 years ago, and we'll talk about that at some other time. But who I am an Afro-Latina. I'm a first-gen American. Both of my parents are from Honduras. I do have a younger brother, so I am an older sister. I'm an Army veteran. I'm a wife now, and I grew up as the oldest daughter in a single parent household. By age 11 years old, I already understood the importance of my mom's annual tax refunds. I already understood the amount of money that my father was giving to us monthly for child support. I knew that we were supposed to pick great value groceries over any other brand name of groceries. And I knew that my mom worked a lot and that I just had to take care of my brother. I understood a lot that sometimes, a kid shouldn't understand. My morning started off with walking my brother to school every morning and then turning around and walking myself to school. And after school, I sat down with my younger brother and I helped him with his homework. Even if I didn't do my own homework because I was already tired at that point. But I really learned early that being a kid was a luxury, and in certain aspects, it was just a luxury that I didn't have. My mother was counting on me, my brother was counting on me, and that's just the sheer reality of it. And I don't think that is the most healthy thing for a child, but that is what my life was. School was a sanctuary for me. I lived for the 8 hours that I was going to be at school. I really did. So school was my one break, and it wasn't really about having good grades. I wasn't that studious. I was okay. I'm smart, but I didn't really care much for that aspect of school. I was there for the social aspect. I was there to be around other kids my age. I really lived a sheltered life where I really wasn't allowed to be around other people. And I can count on one hand the amount of extracurricular activities that I did that were not within school hours. School was my freedom. It was the one time I could forget about all the stuff at home And I also was fascinated by just watching everyone else's life around me. Like everyone else got to be a kid. Everyone else wasn't worried about stuff. And I don't know, like that level of just contentment really, really fascinated me. I wanted to go to school like for art. I wanted to sing. I was part of newspaper and yearbook in high school. And by age 19, my mom was newly divorced, and I was generating half of the income for my household and providing, all while sleeping on the couch of our like tiny apartment. By 19 years old, I was working full time. I was paying bills while my friends were figuring out college and, drafting university papers. And they had like their little part-time gig at the mall. And I was so jealous because I wish that I could have been doing the same thing. By 21, I was joining the National Guard, and I was working full time at Tampa General Hospital. And honestly, like, I'm so glad that I joined the Army. I joined the Army National Guard as a way to make more money for my family and to provide. And joining the Army National Guard is actually what confirmed to me that I have that backbone, like that I actually have a backbone. I was in basic and I was in AIT for almost the full year of 2013. And during that year, my only responsibility was to look after myself, to make sure that I achieved my goals. And that was probably the first time since I had been maybe like in public school where I had time to myself, where I was around peers, and where I only had to worry about myself. So I joined the Army National Guard to help my family. This was in 2013. And when I came back, because when you're in the National Guard, you're stationed at home, essentially. You're like a full-time civilian and you're a part-time soldier. You only do drill 1 weekend a month, and then you do 2 weeks in the summer. By the time that I got back to my regular life, which was sleeping on the couch in our living room, paying half of the bills in my house to provide for my household, by the time I got back, I was like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I want to live my own life for me. And so I made a goal for myself. And that goal was that in 2015, which was the year that my little brother was graduating high school and going away to college, that in 2015, I would finally move out. And so from 2013 to 2015, I made moves that would ensure that I was going to be able to make it on my own without my mom. It was put in my mind that like I couldn't make it without my mom. And I had learned like, no, like I can make it. I learned that I had a backbone. I'm naturally a stubborn person, and I feel like that kind of reinforced my stubbornness of like, nah, like I could do this. Like I don't really need anyone. Like I can do this. I can survive. I can make it on my own. And I can ultimately create a life where I live for me, and I don't have to have all this responsibility that I've been carrying since, before I was even a teenager. And 2015 rolled around. I had just bought my car. I bought an Acura Integra that I had named Carlos. It was a small, like, low rider. It was an Integra from 91, and it had no air conditioning. And I bought it for $1,400. I was so amped. Like, I took the money out from my 403B that I had been working on since I was 18 years old, working at Tampa General. By this point, I was 22 rather. And I bought the car cash. I was super excited. I had never had a car before that. And even though it had no AC, even though it was just like one of them little tan cars, and it was from 91, it was an old car, I was just so proud of myself. I was elated. In the year 2015, which is the year that my brother was he did graduate from high school ultimately. New Year's of 2015, I couldn't wait. I was like, oh my God, it's January of 2015. And my brother graduates in June, and I'll be able to move out. I've got a great job, a car. I'm in the military. I'll make enough money to live on my own. And yeah, I was just in good spirits. And 2 weeks later, I ended up in a car accident that changed the course of my life forever, actually. I ended up in a really bad car accident. It was my fault. It was a DUI with serious bodily injury. Normally, when you have a DUI is a misdemeanor, but when you have a DUI with serious bodily injury, you are now a felon. you are now a felon. So like literally in a matter of minutes, my life changed. I went from having it all together at the start of 2015. I think I was 23 that year. So at the start of 2015, I went from having it all together. I was a soldier in the Army National Guard. I was an employee at Tampa General Hospital. I mean, I had the world was my oyster. I had everything going for me, and I had worked so hard to get to that point where I was like, okay, I'm almost there, and I'm about to start living my life for me. And that's just not what happened. I got into that car accident. I was already living paycheck to paycheck prior to that because I was, helping my family so much. Next thing you know, I am up to my neck in medical fees. I am up to my neck in lawyer fees. The following year, my mom moved states. So as a felon, I don't know if you guys are aware, but as a felon, you're not able to get a place, rent a place, under your own name. So it's impossible to find a place to live. Sometimes it's very difficult finding somewhere to work. If you don't have income, you don't have a place to live, if you can't find a way to get to work, right? Like that's a problem too. So my license was revoked. I had no car. So I have to get to work to make money, to pay back my probationary fees. I have to find a place to live. Like it was a lot. It was a lot at one time for someone who was only 25. So I was right back in the same position of, I have a lot of responsibility. Again, I'm in my mid-20s and I have to rebuild my life. Like I don't know what I'm gonna do. And it was rough. It was a really hard time. But there were a lot of times that I had to remind myself who I am. And me, Melissa Laboriel at that time, now Melissa Atkinson, Melissa, I'm stubborn, I'm unwilling to give up. And this was just one of those moments where I really had to, rise to the occasion. So, one moment, one mistake, and my life flipped upside down, quite literally too, because like in my car accident, my car actually did flip upside down and land onto the oncoming traffic. So quite literally one moment flipped my whole life upside down. And all the things that I had worked so hard for were gone. I had to get out of the military, and luckily I did not have a dishonorable discharge. I actually got out of the military with a general discharge under honorable conditions, which was extremely fortunate for me. I obviously ended up on probation for 5 years, so I knew that I got charged in 2016, and I knew that I wasn't going to get off of probation until my 30th birthday, which would have been in 2021. And that day marked the beginning of my own internal and external struggles. That day marked the start of me really having to live in survival mode. Finding a place to live when you're a felon isn't so simple. It's not cut and dry. No place wants to rent to you if you are a felon, no matter what your crime was, I paid probation fees, every month. And it was money that I already didn't have. I would get 2 paychecks a month, obviously, from work. And one paycheck was for rent. And the other paycheck was getting to and from work because I ultimately needed to Uber to work every single day and Uber back home every single day. It was a stressful life. And I went through it alone. There was no one there for me when I really needed someone. That time by myself really is what set the tone for the kind of person that I am. That time by myself really reassured me. You can do this. You will do this because you have no other choice. You have no choice but to get up and keep living. And there were times that, my lights were cut off. There were times that I didn't have food to eat. There were times where I didn't know, like I didn't know where I was going to lay my head at night. Like I lived through those moments and I survived them because I'm stubborn, because of my unwillingness to give up. Not because I'm such a fantastic person, but more because I felt like I had no choice, and I had to be stubborn. I had to be unwilling to give up in life. I had to know like that there's something that's gonna happen that's gonna be great, and I'm gonna end up on the other side, and I don't know how, and I don't know when, but this life is gonna be a good one because I refuse to have anything less than that. I was essentially at rock bottom for a long time, and I don't think that my life really started to turn around until about 2020, 2021. In 2020, I was able to get my license back. In 2021, my probationary period, like my probation ended in 2021. I turned 30, and on my 30th birthday, I sat in my apartment and I cried. I lived in this studio apartment that was probably like the size of the room that I'm in right now. I used to call it the Bad Bitch Palace, and it was just me and my dog. Rest in peace, Nook. He was a real one. Me and my dog Nook, my old girl, who I recently had to put down. Actually, at the start of this year, I had to put her down, but life was starting to turn around, but it also just was feeling very stuck, very stagnant. I cried because I was like, where did the time go? I feel so old. I'm only 30. And it's not like old because, oh my God, I turned 30. Like, no, I felt old because I felt like I had been working and struggling and trying for such a long time in my life. Like, my whole life was comprised of just that from the time I was like 11 years old. And then I'm sitting here at this milestone age of 30, and I spent the first part of my 20s taking on responsibilities that weren't even mine. And I spent the second half of my 20s trying to rebuild my life from a mistake that I made in my mid 20s. And I felt like it was just unfair, and I felt like giving up. I felt like, wow, like this is my life. Like this is it. This is what it's going to be. It's never going to get better than this, no matter what I do, no matter what I say, no matter what I try. And I truly felt defeated when I turned 30. I really felt like this was the end. I'm like, Jesus, like I'm already 30 years old. How much better can it get? And believe it or not, I actually met my husband 2 weeks after my 30th birthday. And, you know, he turned my whole life around. You know, my husband turned my whole life around. And I don't want to say like, oh, I owe this to a man, because my husband is phenomenal. He's great. But in the last 3 years, I've really had to push myself to grow. And I've had to unlearn a lot of habits that I had. When you're living in survival mode, you don't have a plan. You're just moving, and you're moving fast because you just want to get through it all. I've learned to stop, take a beat, and really embrace what I'm going through, and actually take the time to go through it and work through it. And so this brings me to ultimately the chapter of my life, which is Hard Wig, Soft Life. When I met my husband, I met him at a pool party that I really didn't care to go to. I really didn't even know whose birthday it was. My friend Kelsey, shout out to Kelsey. My friend Kelsey is the one who invited me to go to this pool party. She said, hey, it's my roommate's birthday party. Would you like to come with me? You live down the street, you might as well come. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll go. Y'all, I was lying. I wasn't gonna go to that party. I don't know whose party it was. Like, it was my only day off too. Like, I was not about to waste my only day off going to this girl's party. I don't even know her. And my friend Kelsey called me the day of and was like, hey, are you still coming? And because I already answered the phone, I was like, shit, like, well, you know, like I was trying to weasel my way out of it. So I was like, well, you know, I don't know. And she was like, Melissa, you live less than 5 minutes away. I will literally get in my car and pick you up. You are coming to this party. So I was like, okay, fine, like I'll come. What I didn't know was that the girl whose birthday it was, her then boyfriend, who's her husband, is best friends with my husband, with Ryan. And he kept telling him like, come on, just come out to this thing, this party. You might have a good time. And Ryan, you guys will get to meet Ryan over the course of this podcast, but Ryan is selectively social, if you will. I am extremely extroverted, and Ryan is extremely, I don't want to say he's extremely introverted because he can rise to the occasion. So, and he is super cool, like he's hilarious. But you know, it's just not his thing to like go out and network and meet new people. It's just, he could care less for it. So on his end, his friend, who is the boyfriend to the girl whose birthday it is, his best friend is telling him that he should come out to this party. And Ryan is like, you know what, fuck it, I'll go. We both end up at this party, and the loudest person and the quietest person end up striking up a conversation and having a lot in common. I will say that decision to go to that party was a life-changing event. And I feel like all these decisions that I've made throughout my life have been life-changing events, and you don't even know it. It just happens like that. You have no idea that this is about to be a life-changing event. I will say that all of these quick life-changing events, these decisions that I've made or just things that have happened, have been the catalyst to get me to where I am, right? So the first life-changing event that I can pinpoint is, you know, my parents divorced. It forced me to grow up quickly, to, you know, be comfortable with shouldering a lot of responsibilities, whether it was right or wrong, just because I was so young, whatever, shouldering a lot of responsibility. My second big life change was joining the military. You know, that instilled a sort of strength and resilience in me that I didn't even know that I had at that point. And it prepared me for what was to come. The next life-changing incident that I went through was, of course, my car accident, which was probably one of the most challenging things in my life. I went through so much during those years. And the last life-changing event that I can really pinpoint is the day that I went to that pool party that I didn't want to go to, the pool party that my husband didn't want to go to, and I met the love of my life. And I have been on this phenomenal journey for the last 3 years with him and with myself, and learning so much about myself. So the day that I met my husband, I met him at a pool party. I didn't think that I was going to be meeting anybody important. When I tell you that my weave was like at the end of its life cycle, it was at the end of its life cycle, and that weave needed to come out of my head expeditiously. I will never forget, I had a 14-inch side part, deep wave from Nadula in my head, and it was a quick weave. And yeah, the hair just, it was time, right? Like I didn't buy quality hair because I couldn't afford it, and it had been in my head for far too long. And I met my husband. He liked me, you know, he liked me, bad hair or not. Like he liked me. He asked me for my phone number. I was like, yeah, sure. Like, here's my phone number. You know, this white boy is cute. Why not? And we had a great time at that party, and we were supposed to go on a date. But it took us literally like 3 weeks to get on the date because I just had a lot of stuff going on. It took him 3 weeks, and we still hadn't gone on the first date. And we were deciding like, okay, we should go on this date. And I was going to say no. I was not going to go on this date. And the reason why I was not going to go on this date isn't because I didn't like him. I liked him. I thought it was really cute. I thought it was a nice guy. It was definitely out of my comfort zone because I didn't really date white men before, you know, it just wasn't my preference before. But overall, like, he was like the guy that I've been waiting for. And I was gonna say no. I was gonna say no because my hair wasn't done. I had already taken out this disastrous weave from my head, and I just didn't have enough money to get my hair done. I'm a black girl. I don't go nowhere unless my hair is done. Like, it's not happening. Like, if my hair isn't right, you're not gonna see me. And if I don't have the money to get my hair done, like, you're not gonna see me for a very long time until I could just like pop out and stunt on everybody. And so I wasn't gonna go on this date because of my hair, but it had already been 3 weeks, and I felt like if I don't go on this date with this guy, he's never gonna ask me again. And I don't know, but there's something kind of special about this person. So let me just put my pride to the side and let me be vulnerable. And that is the first lesson that I learned with my husband, and in general of like embracing a softer life, was that I didn't have to be this hard, tough exterior person anymore. That it is okay to be vulnerable, and it is okay to be honest. And that is a big reason of why we're here today, is that I have learned this lesson. I've learned it the hard way, but I've learned it. So I called him up and I told Ryan, hey, I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. I really like you. and my hair is not done and I don't have enough money to get my hair done, but I really like you and I'd like to go on this date. So if you don't mind, I'm actually just gonna wear a head wrap. Ryan has no idea what any of this means at this point. So he's like, yeah, like just wear your head wrap. Like, I don't care how you come. And that was lesson number 2, is that when you're vulnerable and you just show up, you know, people that are supposed to be in your life are going to welcome you with open arms. That's exactly what happened. I went on this date with a head wrap, and my hair was bad when I met my husband. And my husband is, you know, he is a white man, and we do well in our life. Years go by, you know, we're together, and it's been this lovely love story. And I'm sitting in my bed and I'm scrolling through TikTok, and this video pops up. And the video that pops up is the Hard Wig Soft Life theory, which says that the worse your hair is, like the worse off your wig is or weave is as a Black woman, the more likely you are to get yourself involved with a rich white man. And I thought that that was the funniest thing I had ever seen. And then I sat back and was like, wait a minute, I live a really nice life now. My hair was tore up from the floor up when I met my husband. I'm married now. My life is a very soft life. I don't want or need for anything in this life. And yeah, like, I guess there is some validity to this statement. And so it was actually like super funny to me. I kind of just like, it was funny and I just let it be. I even shared it with Ryan, like, cause it was kind of hilarious to me. You know, months went by and I was telling Ryan, I was like, hey, like, I feel like I haven't really tapped into a creative space in a long time. I've achieved a lot, like in the last few years. You know, I got my real estate license. I started that business up. I've reinstated my rights. Like, all of like my felon and probationary stuff is a thing of the past. But I really feel like I haven't tapped into that creative space. And I told Ryan that I really wanted to do something, but I wanted to do something that was personal. And I told him that I wanted to start a podcast. And we talked about it, we chopped it up, and I was like, yo, I don't know what I would name it. And Ryan looked at me and with a very straight face was like, you should name it Hard Wig Soft Life. I thought it was funny, but then I was like, no, like that's actually seriously a really good idea. So shout out to my husband. I was like, that is a good idea. So I went and decided to trademark the name. And then I really thought about what Hard Wig Soft Life meant to me. And what that means to me is ultimately showing up every day. You know, even when your battery is at 1% and that wig is slipping and you feel like you can't take it anymore, show up. And the people that matter are the ones that are going to embrace you in this life. Show up, try your best, and, you know, ultimately things will pan out. And so I do live a soft life, and sometimes I do have a hard wig, and you don't always have to show up with that perfect exterior in order for things to be worth it or good. It is okay to be vulnerable, and Hard Wig Soft Life is ultimately about finding softness even after your hardest years. And that is what I'm aiming to do right now. And I'm so glad that you guys are gonna join me on this journey. I intend on bringing other people on the podcast. There will be interviews. Like I said at the start of this podcast, I feel like there are a lot of stories that aren't told, and those stories are the stories of struggle and perseverance. And I feel like sometimes those stories need to be told. Those voices that aren't heard a lot of the time should be heard. And so I'm gonna utilize this platform to bring those people on here to talk about the real stuff, to really get vulnerable and raw. And I'm just excited. Thank you for tuning in, you guys. I much appreciate it. Make sure you follow me, like, and subscribe on all my social media platforms. And yeah, like, I hope that y'all stay tuned and send me some comments of anything in particular that you may want to hear or of any feedback. I welcome it all. Do it for the algorithm. Yes. And that's it, y'all. Have a good one.